first time I heard about a Star Wars trilogy was that Gary Kurtz told me that we were actually going to make 12 movies. So we thought about that. Well, how long would that take? And I think we began to realize that was going to take a lifetime if each film took 2 to 3 years. That's why they cut it down to just another second trilogy and I guess a third trilogy. Whew. And that's a lifetime right in there.
We had to use remote control R2-D2 at the time, and it will pick up the airplane signals. And sometimes the Air Force jet flies, and it will pick up the signal and go haywire.
And what we did is we laid them down as if they were walls for different departments. So, the optical department would be here, and that wall would be there, and on the other side of the wall was the model shop. And it was a lesson in, I don't know exactly what you'd call it, but a guy named Larry was going to be the head of electronics. Well, he wasn't present. Well, his department became really small and narrow because people in the evening would go, well, I think optical needs to be a little bit wider here for our printers, and the model shop could be just a little wider. And so his department became this little narrow slot. And it isn't anybody sat around and thought, God, I'm really considerate about Larry. He's not getting, that didn't happen until he showed up. Because what we could do is then we had the carpenters just say, okay, this is what we want. Just start building walls, and there's a doorway here between this and that, and a staircase goes here. And they did everything you wanted. If you wanted a staircase that elephants could tap dance on, they made one, because we knew we were going to be lifting big molds and parts and ships. No one said, well, what are the safety regulations for having just an open door that opens up on a nowhere or a forklift? They just did it. Yes, we had to eventually put a rail across that slides back and forth. It was like kids with an erector set in a way. You just got to do it the way you wanted to.
I remember very distinctly that part of the challenge of the Tauntaun sequence was hiding the pylons that the puppet was mounted onto so that the audience wouldn't know the trick. And Michael Pangrazio would be in there painting the pylon, painting a little piece of styrene that was on top of the pylon. He'd paint it the same color as the background. And Dennis and I would be on the other side of the camera, and Dennis would say, you see how that the color on the styrene's a little bit warmer than the background? And I'd be like, no, they all look blue to me. He said, well, look really closely. It's a little bit warmer blue than the background. I remembered from somewhere that when you dim a light bulb, it changes the color from bluish to warm. So one day I said, hey, Dennis, how about we try this out? Instead of Michael having to repaint the styrene every frame, how about I just dim the light a little bit until it matches the background? And it worked. It worked. To my surprise and to Dennis's surprise, it worked.
God, there were so many amazing shots in The Empire Strikes Back. The walkers, that was really amazing. The speeder going through the walker's legs, and Phil Tippett and John Berg doing the stop motion animation, and the matte painters, the snow effects. It was all kind of cutting edge. Nothing like this had ever been done before.
You can go to all kinds of film schools. You can go to work for a lot of companies, but what happened here at ILM just doesn't happen anymore. Learning from people like Dennis Murin and Richard Edlund, and learning how to do machine work from Udo Pompel. There wasn't an area that wasn't covered.
Do you remember, they had the Sarlacc pit?
Yeah.
And we got called out. George called us out at the last minute, and then there was a big rubber pit with the thing, and the thing wasn't working that well.
Kit West made a gas-powered tentacle that was a nightmare.
It never, and so it was there. It wasn't working, so they called us down. We threw a whole bunch of stuff into a Hertz fan and went down. And so I was standing there, to figure out what to do, and we were like all in a circle with Norman Reynolds and Kit West and all that. And I had suggested that you get a piece of like foam.
Yeah, just foam.
That's like, that round and, 8 feet long. And I was showing the principal, and I asked George to like hold it down, and he held it down, and it went whap and hit me in the face, and everybody went like this, and then George started laughing, and then everyone else went.
I did on episode 1 for a 6-month gig. And 22 years later, I am still at Lucasfilm and ILM, and it has been, other than my family, the most important part of my life. It means everything to me. Without Star Wars, I wouldn't have my husband, I wouldn't have my son. My husband worked at ILM, so it's been everything to me personally, but also then seeing it again through my son's eyes. And the first time he saw that moment, the I am your father moment, I remember it like it was yesterday when he just looked at me and was like,
We would draw on a clear cell, take it in the darkroom, and turn it into a codolith, a negative. And then we would take that and black out, some of the dirt and stuff, and use that to push the light through, because it was all backlit stuff. We did the lasers coming from the ships. There was a little gun tower, and they zoomed past it, and as they zoomed past it, it got hit by a laser, and it turned into a bunch of lightning bolts. I did those lightning bolts. So, whoopee.
Well, I didn't have a career before the trilogy. After working for George for 10 years, he sent me to film school at USC. He kept me on half salary. He paid my tuition. He allowed me to take any classes I want. He actually called Jeffrey Katzenberg to tell him that, this kid can make this movie, Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. And, that my career started there, but it was all because of the original trilogy and all because of George, because George sent me there.
The handcrafting of these miniatures and the groundbreaking innovation with motion control, and now, today, we are a global company with 5 studios and 3,000 people, and innovation is still in our DNA. And of course, Star Wars is still leading the charge in terms of driving that innovation.